Oops. Welcome to the Lift Heavy Run Long podcast. You can find us at www.liftheavyrunlong.com, on Twitter and Instagram at liftrunlong. Also, feel free to email me directly at the address wilson@liftheavyrunlong.com. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you are not a member of our private Facebook group, you should be, because we want you to be there. Search for Lift Heavy Run Long Community and request to join right now. Leave us a review because we need a review. However, we got a review this week, which, as you all know, makes me really, really happy, and I'm going to read that to you guys right now. Do y'all want it right now, or should I do the introductions?
No, I think you should read it right now.
I think I should. I can't wait any longer.
Yeah.
This is a 5-star review by Not Just a Mom of Twins. Just wanted to say that I really enjoy your podcasts. I listen to them on my commute to and from work. For a long time now, I've been in a debate about mixing running and heavy lifting, and often find that most people tell me that you can't do both. You must pick only one. Then I stumbled onto this podcast. While I am not a CrossFitter, I am a runner and I enjoy lifting heavy. I'm a mom and a volunteer firefighter. I'm not a bodybuilder, nor do I wish to be one. I probably won't ever run an ultra, the Ragnar's as far as I go, or a marathon. I just want to be strong enough for firefighting, enjoy running while lifting, and to be the role model for a healthy lifestyle for my boys. Thank you so much for your advice and a great podcast.
Boom.
How about that?
Yeah, how about that?
That's pretty good stuff.
You going to read the other one too?
I guess I probably should, but I don't have a picture of it. I don't know where it is. Why don't you read it?
I got it. You want me to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to read it.
I, of course, have it, because this made my day. I like this one. It says, this is from Crystal Paul. Okay. Shout out to Crystal. I listen to your podcast often. I just want to say how awesome I think it is. I love that you are also normal, down to earth, and positive about it. Some of you eat cheeseburgers. Some count calories or macros, but at the end of the day, you're real. I love your banter, and I enjoy the daily emails, by the way. Thanks for offering up a great podcast for the regular person just doing their thing. I lift and I run long. Keep up the great work, everyone.
Crystal made me very, very happy. I responded to her in like 12 seconds. I was like, that is just what I needed right now. And we were referred to as normal people, which is nice.
She didn't know us very well.
I'll tell you who we don't have with us today. To my right is my lovely wife is not here. Amanda Kimsey Horrell, Dr. Horrell, Jacked and Tan, is busy
saving lives
and keeping the mortgage paid.
Right.
So she's up at the hospital. She'll be working a 12-hour shift because she took a regular shift off to go to our daughter's field trip today, which she does a wonderful job of taking care of Grayson and Andy Kate. So we're going to miss her. I'm sad. But who we do have is Dale Sanford. He's here with us. Appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me out.
This will be a lot of fun.
In the cabin here.
In the cabin, within the metal building, outside of the cabin.
This is going to be an historic building one day.
You think it is?
They'll have a little marker out there.
This is where Wilson lived before.
You can buy a ticket to go inside the garage, and then you could buy another ticket if you want to go inside the.
That was the strategy.
In here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So Dale is the owner of BPC Performance, and BPC is Build Peak Performance.
Build, peak, compete.
Build, peak, compete.
Yep.
That's not the first time that I've messed that up.
That's not the first time I've heard it messed up.
Well, we are going to get to that and what you do with that company and how it came about here momentarily. But first, I have to introduce, sitting next to Dale, the Reverend Vaughn Rawls.
Hey, I have an extra shout out.
Please.
Bo Mitchell.
Bo Mitchell.
Yeah. It's been a crazy few weeks for me and months for me. And man, you've been doing these posts on these people, and I was sitting there reading his and go to the website and read Bo's story, man. And I literally just teared up when I read that thing. And I was like, this is what it's about. If there is any one thing to tell you what all of this, everything is about, that little or long article he wrote and you posted is absolutely phenomenal. And love that dude, and just want to give a shout out to him because he made my day, made my week, made my 4 years.
He brought me to tears in
yeah.
the driveway right out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough story.
Right.
He's come a long way. You got to read it for yourself.
Yeah, and just to have the privilege to be a very small part of that it means a whole lot to me. So that was very special.
Bo Mitchell.
Yeah. Thanks, dude.
And we have working the camera, ketogenic Chris Perry.
How are y'all?
You peeing on sticks?
No,
Keto.
peeing on sticks.
How's that
No
going?
hot dogs.
Good so far.
Red?
I've actually
Reddish?
hit the stick.
A tint of red?
I'm red.
Okay.
I was kind of scared because I got a little off the wagon last weekend with the sweets,
Falling off wagons happens.
but I stayed in the red.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been on many of them, and I've rolled off about the same amount that I've been
Run
on.
over a couple of times.
What, wagons?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been on all the wagons.
I've been on all the wagons, every one of them.
I've been off all the wagons.
I just bought a universal pass. I can get on any wagon at any time, and people will know me. They'll be like, "Come on."
You got a wagon. You got a wagon hopper. It's all right. I got the hopper.
That's good. I forgot to introduce Ava Perry, our studio director.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Ava, that was awful rude of me. How are you? It's good to have you back. We missed you last week. So hopefully you'll be here next week and become a regular all the time. Because we're paying you weekly, and we expect you to be
Yeah,
here
you
every
don't.
week.
You don't get paid when you don't show up.
You can't work
It's an
2
important
weeks and
lesson
then
for you
take
to
a
learn.
vacation. This is serious stuff. We're serious business
At
people.
11 years old, you need to learn that.
Let's see, what else did I have to talk about before we get into BPC performance? Stanky Creek, I have some shout outs as well. We did the Stanky Creek 50K and 25K this weekend, and that was gnarly.
It was.
Dawn Stivers, Gary Owens, Sean Hilsden, April Williams, Debbie Lindsay. Pretty badass stuff. Sean did it in less than 5 hours.
Yeah.
Finished
yeah.
third or something.
In fact, Sean Hilston, I told him jokingly before the race, I was like, "So what do you think, buddy? Sub 5? You got it." He was like, "Yeah, right. Uh-huh." And sure enough, I came in at the end of my third loop, and he was coming in at 4:56 or something like that. I looked at my watch, and I was like, "Dude, I told you, it's like 4:54. You got this."
I was
was
starting
awesome.
my third loop, and there he came up behind me.
Well, when y'all took off, I actually went the opposite way to get set up with the camera. And, I'm walking along, I'm going across creeks and everything, and I don't know how far I went into the woods, but all of a sudden I hear, somebody running. So I'm like, okay, I got to get set up so I can get these first few. Well, all of a sudden here comes Sean around the corner, and I'm like, holy crap. I mean, he was booking.
Yeah, he was.
And there was
rolling, man.
somebody on his tail, too.
He's killing it.
He's in a death race every time he runs.
Oh, my gosh, he was going.
And Dawn and Gary and April, that was all three of their first 50Ks. Debbie, that was the furthest she had gone at 25K. And, of course, she did an excellent job, like she always does, of bringing a harem, just in a posse of people who she encourages to get out and move around, that's what it's all about.
What I imagine is in like another 5 years, like they have to build some kind of rule around us because we'll have like 50 people there with our tents, and they'll be like, okay, this is going to be just the lift heavy run long event.
That would be great.
Because you have so many people. It seems like we're turning this into our Woodstock. Like we have our tents, we have our people, we have our coolers. We're just come plant.
And it's
for the
great.
day. Yeah, I
and
love it.
it's a great time.
It's so much fun.
And I hope it continues to be like that. I have written down here about recovery. After I do races that distance, I'm really not fit enough to be doing a 50K with any sort of gusto. And then when I come off of that, there's like so much fatigue and depression that sets in from that. I'm just not myself for a week.
Yeah, I'm usually like that. I'm not like that this week. I'm just hurt this week more than normal because of whatever. But yeah, I've been fine. It's just I've been having a hard time walking and sitting down and standing up. Today I'm good, so I'll train tomorrow.
It would help if I did some of the things that you do for recovery,
That would help.
minus lay on a recliner and eat extra large pizzas.
Yeah.
Because I've done a lot of that. One day of pizza has led to another, which has led to Taco Tuesday, of course. And I had to enjoy that, which has led to all kinds of not healthy stuff.
Sure.
But I'm getting back on track, getting back on the wagon. I got a
Getting back
universal
on-
pass.
We're getting on that
fall off
wagon.
again.
Here's my hopper.
And we have Amanda and I have registered for the Tough Mudder this weekend in Nashville or somewhere outside of Nashville. But we've got to drop her dog off in Chattanooga at her folks' house. And I said, if we're going to drive all the way to Chattanooga, drop the dog off, why don't I sit on your mom's couch and let her feed me all weekend and not go to the Tough Mudder?
Oh,
She said that would be great.
look at you.
So that's what I'm going to do. So I won't be coming back any slimmer from that trip.
Well, there you go.
But it's all about family. And a good son-in-law
You're taking one for the team.
goes to the mother-in-law's
taking one
house and he just
team.
eats everything
right.
she fixes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to prove myself to be a good son-in-law.
See no other path for you.
There's nothing else I can do.
Yes.
I've been put in a corner.
Yep. It's almost not even fair.
No, it's not. But I just don't. I don't want to be rude.
But you're
And
good.
She calls me Sweetness, so I have to keep my.
I'm proud of you.
nickname up.
I'm proud of you for
He's taking one for
Yeah.
the team.
That's what I do. That's what I'm here to do. All right, Dale.
Yes, sir.
We have got. I've got to read off. I don't know what any of these mean. Very few of them.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But you are a qualified guy. You're certainly qualified to be sitting in the cabin inside of the shop outside of the cabin.
and he's got the watch.
He's got the
So we're
watch.
I fit in.
Yep.
He does well with the
And-
flat brim hat.
Not that I'm bro crushing or anything, but these shoes are amazing.
See that?
I
They
don't know,
are
you
cool.
can't see them on the thing, but tell us what they are because I'm gonna have to buy a pair
They're
of them.
the Ultra Impulse Flash.
Okay.
They are good looking.
They,
Why would you have to clarify that you're not bro crushing?
I don't know. I just felt awkward.
Especially to somebody like me who's as overly, like outwardly complimentary and
Oh yeah.
and whatever the word is that you call that. But yeah, totally cool
A
shoes.
bit of a shoe connoisseur.
Are you?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, you're also a certification holding connoisseur
Yeah.
because it
Collected a
says
few.
I've got Dale, USAT, BS, USATF, USAC, USAW, CPT, BMS, SPARQ.
Yeah.
You sound like a
every
multi-sport
letter.
athlete coach.
Yeah. Well, I was
about
gonna,
that?
I should just take them all out of there.
No way.
Just take them all out.
That
No,
sounds like a DUI test.
Yeah, it's a lot of basically USA governing bodies of different sports and USA weightlifting and USA cycling, triathlon, track and field, and a couple other sport performance based certifications and classes that I've gone through. Spent a lot of time in the first part of my career basically collecting certifications and doing as much continuing education on the specifics that I wanted to be coaching people versus, general exercise science and stuff like that. So, yeah, I collected a few. Spent a lot of time and money in weekends doing a lot of certifications.
Well, you've done something right to be in business for 8.5 years.
Yeah, no, we've it's been fun, and we certainly have worked hard for it. But it's you do what you love. You don't actually have to ever work a day.
So BPC is this something you do by yourself, or do you have a big
No, we have I have a business partner who basically we're equals in the business, and we've got 3 other coaches that are kind of contract coaches that work with us. We have a nutritionist on staff. We actually have 2 RDNs on staff, and they between all of us, we pretty much can cover all the bases. And
is RDN registered
dietitian nutritionist? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's another one of those acronyms.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
That's important. It's important for a guy like you to have one of those people, because you can't, there's like all these weird laws about like telling, I can't coach you on nutrition if I don't have this.
Yeah, that's the worst
specific
one,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you try to tell people what to eat, and somebody has a bad experience, and then you can be pretty liable for
Right.
that.
Right. But and really, it's like all I'm doing is you can't eat McDonald's. Like, just stop eating
That's a big
McDonald's
part of it.
and just eat some real food.
Well, you can't tell me that.
And then some guy goes and eats real food and then eats some McDonald's and had a heart attack, and it's your fault.
Exactly.
Is that the problem? I mean, there does seem to be a pretty big. Y'all have stressed
You're
over
just
and
not-
over that
yeah.
you can't call yourself a nutritionist.
Well, you just can't advertise that you give nutrition advice.
That's
or
true.
something like that.
And we don't. I mean, before we had Casey and Brian working with us, we basically had to say, we can give you some suggestions. You don't have to listen to them.
Right.
You don't have to do it at all, actually. And but that's about. We can't say this is what you need to do. Because,
But this is what I eat here. I printed it out for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They're a lot more. We quickly learned early on that we couldn't physically do everything, and be really good at everything. And I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not the best example of awesome nutrition, but Casey and Brian have it down to obviously a science, and they're very good about guiding people based on their tastes, their cooking abilities. And we don't make meal plans. That's one thing. We don't make meal plans. We do nutrition guides, and that usually works a lot better for people, and it works for the long haul versus you get on a diet and you do it for a few months, and then you're off the wagon. Your card gets pulled, and yeah. So generally, the guide system has been working a lot better for us than meal planning.
If your nutrition is not on point, you're in a safe zone here. You have nothing to worry about.
No. I won't tell you what I ate on the way here. But yeah, it's it's kind of one of those things that a lot of people have trouble with, but at the same time, it doesn't. People don't get, especially athletes. It's either all or nothing usually, and people don't understand that you can kind of get in the moderate level of healthy eating, and you're fine. You're gonna be fine, especially if you're doing a decent amount of exercise. You can get away with a lot of crappy eating if you're doing enough exercise.
Yeah, if you're an endurance athlete, right? If you're running a whole lot and doing that, you can, I suppose.
You still have to fuel the machine.
Right.
Well, but taking that a little further, do you think that there's a side of that could be potentially more dangerous to try and be too strict, where you see people jump off, as the theme seems to be the wagon, where you see people try, and then when they break, they're done?
Yeah, I mean, it's a slippery slope for sure, and we've seen a lot of people who are, we get a lot of people who are like very type A, into performance, want to do everything possible to get every gain they can, whether it's their equipment. Is this watch going to make me faster? Okay, I'll buy it. So yeah, I mean, these people tend to get really serious about their nutrition for a specific amount of time, like maybe leading up to a goal, and then a goal race or a goal event. And then once that event is passed, it is anarchy.
You are in with the type A of the type A's, the type AAA personalities. If triathletes are what you're dealing with, then that is a different category of people.
Yeah, I mean, we work with triathletes, runners, cyclists of all levels. We tend to get a lot of the folks who are very into competing, and even if it's just you beating your best friend, that level of competition, they're very serious about improving and want to take every measure possible to ensure their optimal performance. But then we do get a lot of people who, we get this on the front end. It's I'm just doing this to have fun, and I love competing. I love training. I don't necessarily have to compete to enjoy what I'm doing, and I just want to make sure I'm doing it the right way and doing it the best way possible. So there is, it's maybe 50% super serious competitors, and then we get 50% people who we're basically guiding them through their fitness journey, so to speak.
So you'll take any level?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've coached people to their first 5K, first everything, any distance, upwards of, I've had a guy finish 4th in the 50-mile road race national championships.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah, so we take them all. And
what kind of time do those people finish that in?
On the road in a 50?
I think in that he was 4th place, and he averaged like a 7:05 pace.
Jeez.
So I think the guy.
I would love to
insane.
do that in a 5K. I would love to run a mile in 7:05.
It's
50. Woo.
It's he. This is a guy too, but the nice part is this is also a guy who he owns a dental practice, multiple now. He's a busy dude, and yet he still finds time to do the things he loves and trains. He just loves running. I could send him out on 5-hour run every weekend, and he would not care. He would not bat an eye. So it's still, it comes down to loving what you do, loving the activity that you do, and finding the time around your life scenario. That's got to be 90% of what we really do for people is just plugging in the right workouts on the right days. When somebody thinks they don't have time, we say, "Oh, you do have a little block here. Plug it in." And that's the huge benefit to having a coach, is having somebody look over your shoulder when you think you don't have time, or when something happens during the day and you don't have time for this workout, but what could I get in? They're there to say, let's put this here, move this around, and the quality of your training is still there.
So how does that work? So are you talking on the phone? Are you in person with these people? Like if I came to your company and said, okay, I'm ready, let's do this, what happens?
Yeah, so a lot of we actually use a software called Training Peaks, and Training Peaks is basically we can create, deliver, monitor, and view all your data, basically. So for a runner, we would create your entire training week or month or whatever. In Training Peaks, you can see all that information on your iPhone or whatever, and it's spelled out to the T. We leave it. There's nothing left to think about. We put in your paces, if there is anything, any structure, it's all in there based on your levels.
Nothing left open to interpretation.
There is nothing left open to interpretation. All you have to physically do is the actual work. So there's no thought process. You don't have to go back into Strava and, look over your data and just spend hours and hours and hours just kind of wondering why you're not improving the way you are. That's what we're worried about.
Do they check that off somehow, and that information goes to you?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty cool. So this fancy watch that most of us wear around, it's hooked up either by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to your computer or home network or whatever. And as soon as you hit save and that thing goes to your Garmin Connect account, it automatically doubles over to your Training Peaks account. So
that's awesome.
We actually get immediate. As soon as you upload it, we can look at it. And we literally get every bit of data that this thing spits out. So we can see where you went, pacing, cadence, absolutely everything. So it allows us to be extremely detailed in people's training. So
if if I'm a cyclist, for instance, do you just program cycling for me, or are you programming strength work? Are you programming what does it look like typically?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we do everything. Again, we don't leave anything. Basically, we don't leave anything to chance. So
Right. So you don't have the guy that goes, I ran my 5 miles yesterday, but today I did all these heavy squats, and now I can't do.
Our kind of philosophy is to touch every piece of performance that we possibly can. So every piece of the performance puzzle, whether it's what shoes are you wearing, are they right for you? We try to, for the more competitive people, any level really, we'll look at your running form and make sure that you're running fairly efficiently, or if you're, doing some things that might be injury prone. But then we also we make sure, we preach strength work to every endurance athlete on the face of the earth, and we beat it like a dead horse. And, for some folks, I'm assuming not the people listening to this podcast, but for a lot of endurance athletes, they have a hard time justifying that time spent doing strength work versus I could be out running some more miles.
Yep.
I like to put it, you could be out running a bunch more junk miles that aren't going to actually help you either become a better runner or a more durable runner. We always say that strength work is really like your longevity in the sport. Mm-hmm. So if you don't do the strength work, at some point something's going to break down, and it never fails really. I mean,
has that data come out to be more positive in the last decade? In the recent years, has strength training been emphasized more than it was 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've been out there preaching it for a long time, and now you'll see a lot of elite athletes that are out there now showing off their strength routines and their time spent in the gym, and a lot of them are out there saying, this is like my favorite workout of the week, because for elites, it's run, rest, eat, lift, run, and they may run twice a day. So the cross training in the gym becomes something that they really enjoy. And once you actually do it and you see the benefit of it, it's not a hard sell because you feel better, you feel stronger as you run. You don't fatigue as quickly, you don't break down as quickly, your form stays strong. And but it just takes really dedicating 6 to 8 weeks to getting used to doing it, because there's always going to be that period of, we call it super soreness. And then once that subsides, you're still going to be sore if you're actually pushing yourself, but it's less of a hindrance to your actual running or riding or whatever.
Now you've got something going on with hydration.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I don't know where to start. So hydration has become a huge part of our business in the last 6 months, mainly because of me. Actually, I've had so many issues with hydration over the years, and it's been a kind of a struggle, and it to some extent concerning to a point. It was probably 2008. I was doing my second half Ironman, and I finished the race, which was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. And it was the hottest day of the year where I was at in Illinois. The race was on like brand new blacktop. I may or may not have went out on the lake the day before and drank a few beers. I got sunburned.
Lake beers are important.
Yeah,
though.
well, it's
That's
good hydration. So, the next day, the race, I finished, and I knew it was not going to end well, but I did it anyways. And I got walking back to the car and started feeling dizzy, and I turned around and tried to go back toward the medical area, which was basically an ambulance on the side of the road. And I basically just fell out throwing up, just puking my guts out. And I went up to the race director, and he's like, "Get in the ambulance, all right." So now I'm sitting on the back of an ambulance. I'm like, there's no way I'm dehydrated because I drank like 7 bottles on the bike. I drank fluids at every aid station on the run, which I ended up having to basically walk most of it. But, I get in the ambulance and the EMTs are like, you need to drink water. So they're like shoving water in my face, trying to get me to cool down, and it was not getting any better. I went basically into full body cramps. I mean, just locked down totally. And long story short, I ended up in the ER, which is always fun, in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. I think there was 5 beds in the whole place, and I got lucky one of them. And got all this blood taken, and they actually ended up putting like 5 bags of fluids in me, which is a ton if you know fluids. And come to find out, it wasn't necessarily that I was super dehydrated, but I was actually hyponatremic, which is when the sodium levels in your body get to a low level. So they drop below, I believe it's like 120 millimoles, but without the sciencey part, it's really low sodium. So that can happen 2 different ways. You either sweat out a ton of fluid and you don't put sodium back in, or you drink too much water and you dilute the levels of sodium in your body, and that is the same result. So,
oh wow, okay.
I was basically hyponatremic, and the really dangerous part of that is once you get to a certain level, your body, the cells like in your body kind of swell up, and your brain kind of swells, and it can lead to really, really bad things. So that was the first initial really bad kind of run-in with hydration. For the next few years, I basically cramped up in every race I did 2 hours or longer. Without a doubt, was going to cramp up. I would
regardless of what you drink.
I mean, I could not drink enough, and I started to try to like drink a ton, and I was still using like the mass marketed drinks like Powerade and Gatorade, and there's so much sugar in that stuff that I was just trying to pile in liters of this stuff, and it was just killing my stomach. So I just couldn't drink enough.
So were you missing sodium? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Or
yeah. So come to find out, I actually sweat out an amazing amount of sodium compared to other people. And it took me several years and a lot of research. And I actually ended up having a few like heart-related issues because of this stuff, or because of the amount of sodium that I sweat. And so I was doing some research and came upon these guys in the UK who have a system of testing sweat sodium concentration. So it can test how concentrated your sweat is as far as how much sodium you're losing in that sweat. And so the light bulb went off, and I contacted them immediately. We had a bunch of conference calls, and we ended up buying equipment from them to test this stuff, because there's no better climate, in the United States that would maybe need this service
to sweat.
Then yeah, I mean,
right here.
I mean, it gets sweaty.
Yeah.
In the Mid-South. So, anyways, I was the first one to get tested, and I'm still to this day the 3rd highest person we've tested. I actually lose almost 1.5 grams of sodium for every liter of sweat. And now, if you're talking about, the 2 parts of this, you have sweat sodium concentration. That's how much salt is in your sweat. And then you have the volume that you're actually sweating, that's your sweat rate. So I also happen to have a really high sweat rate. So I can actually lose, 2 liters pretty easily in this heat that we have here, 2 liters an hour. So that's basically almost 3 grams of sodium an hour in the extreme heat. So
how much is a SCAP? How much sodium is that?
I want to say that's about 250 milligrams or 215, something like that. Yeah, and that's kind of what we found out in the research, is that there's a huge range of.
So you're talking about taking 24 of those things to compensate.
Close. Yeah.
But also what I'm hearing, this is super interesting. Also what I heard was, if I drink too much water, if I'm still munching on those Endurolites or whatever, it's
Diluting
if
it.
I'm not, you're
Yeah,
not
so-
really helping yourself. So.
Yeah, so there, some people would argue that over drinking is actually the bigger hazard to endurance athletes. Going out, especially if you're doing ultras, you're going out for a long period of time. You're sweating a ton, and you're drinking. You end up drinking a ton of fluid. So whatever you decide to put back in your body is going to make a gigantic difference in your ability to keep running. So if you just pile back in water, eventually you're going to dilute the sodium in your blood, and you're going to end up with a pretty severe performance decline. At the same time, you can put in too much sodium, but for the most part, your body's really good at regulating that. And it has to be a pretty solid amount of sodium put in to start retaining water. There have been cases where people overdo it and they swell up, basically.
I can retain some water.
Yeah.
On a long weekend, not a long run so much.
Yeah.
But over salting is not typically a problem.
It's not typically a problem, no. And part of the reason there is because most of the sports drinks on the market today aren't super sodium rich. The range for sweat sodium concentration is 250 milligrams per liter to 2,000 milligrams per liter. So, I mean, if you're talking a 10 times difference in people or in sweat sodium concentration, that's a huge range of need as far as the concentration of the drink that they're putting in their body. So, I guess one of the most interesting things that we've found of the people that we've tested in the Mid-South, I think we've ran through probably 60 tests at this point over the last few months, and it's 40% of the people that we've tested need over 1,000 milligrams per liter of sweat. So liter's 32 ounces. So, so for every 32 ounces of sweat they're losing over 1,000 milligrams. The average drink on the market, the Gatorades, the Powerades, are somewhere in the 250 to 400 milligram per liter range. And then some of the more endurance based things like Scratch and Tailwind and stuff like that, they're in that 750 milligrams per liter.
What is your take on Tailwind?
Take on Tailwind. If you, at this point, if that falls into a range where it works for you, great. I mean, the truth is, whatever works for you works for you. I mean, you have to try stuff. You have to find what your stomach agrees with your stomach. But more importantly, you want to have a drink that kind of better simulates what's leaving you. Especially, I mean, it's one thing if you're doing hour-long sessions or hour-long competitions or whatever, but if you're out there for 5 hours, 4, 5, 6 hours or more, you've got to kind of get your hydration kind of dialed in, because even if you're losing small deficits of sodium for every hour, it may not catch up to you for 4 hours, but in 8 hours it may bite you. So, it just really comes down to finding out what you need, or even just experimenting with what you need. If you're finding that you're getting 4 hours in and you feel totally demolished, and that's not that's not maybe your first 4 hour run you've ever done, then there's a good chance that sodium might be playing a big role. If you're one of those people that finishes a run and you have just cakes of salt, you can just scrape it off your face.
Present. I'm here.
Yeah, there's a chance that you lose a lot of sodium, or you could be just putting out tons of volume of fluid.
So let me see if I understand. So you have a facility or some equipment where I can come visit. I can come to your facility and put me on the machine, and you can say, I run for a little while or whatever, and you say, okay, you're sweating X amount. You need to be taking this amount of sodium or whatever every hour, or how does that work?
Yeah. We have, like I said, we invested in the equipment to do the sweat sodium concentration testing, where it's not even an exercise-induced test. So we sit down on a couch like this, and I put 2 electrodes on your arm, and I shocked the crap out of you. No, I'm kidding. It's actually done.
I was totally game for it.
He was excited.
I was like, okay,
Yeah, no.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Shoot a dart in your eyeball.
Okay,
It's actually.
I got
Proceed.
two. I got
Carry
two
on.
eyeballs.
Carry on.
You just use the left one. This one's bad.
I need to know this salt deal.
It's actually it's a very light, like electrical charged pad that goes on your arm. Actually, the machine that we use is a repurposed medical device that has been around for years. That it tests for the diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. So they basically repurposed the machine and got licensed to use it in sport versus medical diagnosis. And so the original usage was tested on infants. So we've only had like 5 grown men cry. So,
Deaths.
but you barely feel it. And so it just basically creates a really localized sweat on your arm. And then we put a collector on it. We collect the sweat sample and we literally just run it through a machine and it gives us a concentration of that sweat.
So y'all are doing some Mr. Wizard stuff up in there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like lab testing, except for not in a lab.
Yeah, well, close enough. I
Yeah.
would call it lab testing.
It's lab grade equipment. We'll just put it that way. But once we have the number, we can then tell you, exactly what kind of a drink that you need to have. And we actually have partnered with Precision Hydration, and we actually stock and sell all of their specific sports drinks that they created because they found that there was 20 to 40% of the people that they were testing that the average drink on the market couldn't even help them, couldn't even provide what they needed as far as sodium content. So, there's 2 drinks, there's 4 drinks total. There are tablets and powders, and it's like Noon and any other powder drink that you would take in. But there are 2. The top 2 strengths are 2 and 3 times stronger than the average drink on the market. So it's some pretty stout stuff, but for the people who need it, it's been a game changer.
Is there a range in their drinks? You said
Yep.
what works for you, and y'all are essentially through science saying this should work for you.
Yep. Yeah. So the range of the basically.
I mean, can you buy the kind of salty, super salty?
Yeah. Well, the nice part is none of the drinks are like ocean water. You would think that if it gets way high in sodium, that it's just going to taste like garbage. But actually, they're actually pretty pleasant. It's very much like a Noon, a little bit lighter flavor, not super sweet at all. But they go in. It goes from 250 to 1,500 milligrams per liter. So I personally, all I drink is the 1,500. And you think about it. I can sweat out 3,000 milligrams in an hour if it's pretty hot outside. That's 700 milligrams over what the what is recommended for an average diet for the day. So you're blowing.
That's how many times?
It's like the average recommendation now for healthy people is 2,300 milligrams for the entire day. I can blow through that in an hour, easily, in an hour. Right. So if I don't start taking in some serious sodium, it leads to the ER essentially.
Yeah, that's why I eat big Sasquatch beef jerky so often is to make sure that I'm not in an ER somewhere.
That's right.
Dehydrated.
That's right.
Mark Baker was the first person to tell me about getting overly hydrated. That before his half Ironman that he ran, that he just drank hydrated with water, and he was urinating, and he peed out all his electrolytes and whatever else.
I'm really attracted to the whole measuring this sodium thing because, like, I have this thing where my calves seize up, like, really bad, and like this past weekend, water out I can't tell you how much I drank water and Gatorade. I'm eating the pills, like clockwork, but like at the last 2 hours of the race, if my foot gets caught on a stump, both calves are like, like you are not moving. And like there was one time where I'm like I hit a root seas. I'm like the Tin Man for like 10 meters. I'm like, oh God, I drank all the water and I took all the. What's wrong? So I love that. I love the thought that you could stick that thing on my arm and be like, well, here's the problem. It's because blah blah blah.
Well, that's what really made me go and do tons of research. One is because I was having some weird heart issues, but I was like, I cannot be the only idiot that has a really, really hard time with this.
Yeah.
And I have a background in sports science, so it's even more like, why can't I figure this out? And in my research, I'm like, well, there is a reason. It's not completely my fault. There's really no. It's up to this point, there wasn't a drink on the market that could even help me. I'd have to drink double. I'd have to drink double scratch or put 3 things of Noon tablets in a bottle just to get close. And at that point, you've oversaturated the drink sugar wise, or with something else that may not may upset your stomach or whatever. It's just not going to work. I mean, I got to the point where I was literally I bought all these components of sports drinks, and I was mixing my own drinks, and just experimenting with them, because it got so frustrating that I could not get this right. But my big mistake was using table salt as the actual sodium in the that was ocean water for sure. But I drank it because it was actually helping a little bit, and so I kept doing it. And then come to find out, I didn't have to be doing it. But yeah, I mean, it got bad and it got frustrating. And at this point, it was like, okay, this is why. Okay, if we can help a lot of people who are struggling with this stuff, like I was, then sold. Like, get the equipment. I don't care what it costs. Get it here to the Mid-South so we can start helping people. Because, I mean, it's otherwise it's a lot of times it's years of trial and error, and the error part can be pretty bad.
So is that specific thing just something you use for the athletes you're coaching, or can Joe off the street just walk in and be like, "Hey, hook me up to that"?
No, absolutely. Yeah, we have a system you can book online and come by and get tested whenever it's convenient for you. And we love doing groups, so we'll get a group of lift heavy, run long folks, and we'll come set up somewhere, and it's totally mobile. Equipment fits in a box, fits in a case, Pelican case.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh yeah.
What's the cost around something like that?
Usually for groups, we do it for $119, and that includes,
person.
Yeah, that includes the test, and then also everybody who does the test gets basically a custom hydration plan that gets emailed to you immediately, and it breaks down what you should be doing pre-workout or a race, or during competition, or during training, based on what your number comes out to be as far as your sodium concentration. So, that alone has been huge for a lot of people, just having something saying, this is what you need to do.
Just the peace of mind that would go along with that would be really nice. Yeah. To be running and feel like, I think I should be able to do this for longer, but based on, what I'm taking in. I know the feeling that comes with starting to cramp up, like you're talking about, your calves start. I sweat so much, and I'll reach a point where I've taken S-caps before, like a handful of them. I've just kind of been like, I don't know what to do, so I just take a lot of this, and I'm drinking a lot of that, and I feel like all of a sudden I dry out, and life is good. And I'm like, okay, something really shifted, and I feel like it has something to do with my sweat or the salt intake, but I don't have any idea how to recreate that.
Yeah, it could have been something you picked up off at an aid station, a potato or something,
right?
That you didn't know to pick it up. You just happened to pick it up, and it made you feel better. My thing is, I'm at the point now, I want to know. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of being at 40 miles and being like, okay, what did I do wrong? What happened? I'm filling my bottle up. I'm drinking it. I'm taking these pills every half hour. But it's 45 miles in. I feel like, and I'm ready to just quit this thing and then something happens and I feel better, but I don't know why that happened or why, you know what I mean? It's like I guess there's a line between like, I can go and finish the race, but it really would feel good to be like, I know that I did exactly what I was supposed to do. And I can tell you why I did that, because that's what I was supposed to do, because I got tested or whatever. And someone told me, you take and drink this amount. Yeah. Don't just swap. Okay, well, my calves feel kind of crappy, so I'm going to take 2 pills this time instead of 1. Like nobody's saying you need to take 2 pills. I'm just taking them. I'm going to take more because I feel crappier than I did 2 hours ago.
That's what I do. I'm like, okay, I feel terrible, so I'm going to take 6 of these S-caps, and I'm going to eat 2 handfuls of everything at the aid station and just chug water until I throw up or pass out. And then, you don't know what's working and what's not, but it typically doesn't work.
Yeah, the nice part is we essentially give you immediate results. So as soon as we run it through the thing and put it into the system, it literally spits out the hydration plan, and we can tell you this is what you need to be drinking prior to, during, after. And we can also, if somebody brings in what they're doing now, that's what we love. I love doing that, because people will bring in their hydration plan, whatever it is doing now, and we can help them tweak it on the spot. I actually had a lady. This is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. I actually had a lady come in and get tested, and she ran pretty low. She was like 600 and something milligrams per liter, and when I took her plan and I started adding this stuff up, she was basically taking in double what she needed. And so she was complaining her stomach was, messed up a lot, and she just didn't feel right. And so we actually cut her hydration or sodium intake in half, and she's fine. She hadn't had any stomach problems, and it's been great. There's a few cases on that end of the spectrum, but majority of the time it's people aren't taking enough.
It's crazy how you can measure things and prescribe things.
How science works.
We
were talking earlier about that. I try not to say prescribe too much.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't want people to think I'm a doctor.
Right.
I do want people to think I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a doctor. If there was a doctor here, we could have said that. You'll have to edit it out now.
But she's not here, so I'm going to be the on-call doctor.
Okay.
So you just call me doctor. So how long have you been how long has that equipment been here? How long have you been offering that?
We got the equipment in July, I believe. And
that soon?
Yeah. We got the equipment in July, and between July, August, June, late June, July, and August, we've ran over 60 tests on Mid-South athletes, and I would say 40% of them aren't taking in, or the drink they're using is just not going to service them over a long period of time. Now, it's the one thing I don't like. I'm not a big scare tactic person, so don't think that you have to have it right every single run, every single workout. If you're only going out for an hour, you could probably go out without water and you're fine. But if you are running long, there's a good chance that you're running long enough that it's going to impact how you feel, your performance. And if nothing else, for those of you who just get home from a long run and you just feel terrible, or just all you want to do is lay on the couch, a lot of that is because of like a deep dehydration. And we've even had people that's their main feedback to us is, I feel pretty good during, but I don't feel like junk afterwards. That's been the big takeaway for a lot of folks.
I would love to see that. I work outside for a living, and I sling fertilizer, or I'm operating a backpack blower, walking miles and miles of industrial parks. Mm-hmm. So I don't really, it's hard for me at the moment to consider that real endurance work, but it's a lot of steps. It's a lot of moving. And sometimes I'll finish up and I don't consider that my exercise. So I'll go to work out or I'll go to run, and I can't really put it together that that's exactly what's causing me to feel bad. And then other times I'll go run and I'll feel Excellent. So my feelings vary to an extent that's just too much to not be explained. I'm allowing that to happen to the point to where I should have some data to tell me what I should be doing differently. Not that I would listen to it, but it would be helpful.
Data's always good. But unless you don't put it to use, the easiest thing for people to do at first is, okay, when you get done with a run, are you covered in salt? Are your clothes covered in salt crystals? Can you scrape it off your face? That's
when you get in the shower and it all runs down and you like, oh God, I feel like I'm swimming in the ocean.
Yeah. So if that's a pretty good indicator that you're a fairly salty sweater. The other thing, the easiest thing you can do is to test your sweat rate, because that's really the other side of the equation. That's the multiplier. So you're sweating out, say, 1,000 milligrams per liter, but your sweat rate is 2 liters. Well, now you're talking 2,000 milligrams an hour if you're sweating 2 liters an hour. So easiest thing people can do is test their sweat rate. And that easiest thing is weigh yourself before a workout, and then go do your workout. You drink as normal. Just keep track of what you're putting in. And then when you come back, weigh yourself again, subtract the 2, add in the fluid ounces that you've taken in, and you've got basically a number of ounces. 16 ounces is a pound. So you lose 4 pounds. You add them together, and now you say, okay, I did 2 hours, divide that by 2 hours, and now I have a sweat loss per hour. The thing with sweat rate is it is pretty highly variable. So if you run outside in the 110 heat index, and then the temperature drops to 70 degrees, you're going to want to kind of retest that as the seasons change, and it's even effective.
You're going to want to not run in the 110 degree heat index and wait till it gets 70 and test it there.
Yeah. So essentially, you test it in whatever your normal climate is, and then a lot of times it's best to test it at like a event intensity. So any of your marathon runs or long runs or whatever you're doing at race intensity, that's probably the best time to actually test it. And then you have your sweat rate. So if you have an incredibly high sweat rate, there's a chance that even if your sweat sodium concentration runs a little lower, that you're sweating out so much volume that you might need more sodium anyways. So those are the two, easiest things that are indicators whether you may need more sodium in your fluids.
I'm having somewhat of an epiphany here, whereas it's like, okay, I don't ever measure anything. So I go run. Let's say I go run for 4 hours. I started with a bottle that I don't even know how many ounces it holds. I may have stopped it at Joe Blow's house and used a spigot to fill it halfway through or something, and then drank that. I don't know how much it was. You know what I mean? So I can't even tell you how many ounces of water I drank, because I don't even know how many ounces of water fit in my bottle. So there's something
about a bottle full.
It's just like everything else. Like we tell these people in the gym all the time, like you gotta log this stuff and measure it. How much water did you drink on this run? Well, I don't know. I drank a bunch of water. What does it matter? Well, it matters. Like, how many of those pills did you take? Well, I think I took 2, but it's possible I took 3 maybe when I was blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So there's definitely something to that, okay, let's focus on this. Like, your performance sucks. Let's think about when you did that 4-hour run, how much exactly did you drink, and how many of those pills did you take, and what does that calculate into? You know what I mean? That makes me feel a lot better about, okay, well, if I knew what I was supposed to be doing, maybe I wouldn't feel so crappy.
Well, it makes you wonder why you don't do that.
Why don't
because
you
you
do
know
that?
that fundamentally.
Right.
Everybody knows that. But, I get done with a run and I feel crappy, and I'm like, it's just because I have a crappy life.
And here's a fantastic CrossFit example. The athlete that comes in the gym is like, this sucks. I come every single day and I'm not seeing any result. Like, this is terrible. I feel like shit. Everything is horrible. Well, how many times did you work out this week? Every day. 6 days. You came 6 days, and then you came on the 7th day for the free hour workout. Right, so you work out. So you didn't have any rest. You didn't do this. The same type of thing. Like you have to measure that stuff and calculate what needs to be happening for you as an individual. You can't just willy-nilly. You can just willy-nilly, but if you're tired of feeling like crap and you want to do better and you're plateaued or whatever, it helps to dial it in and be like, let's start measuring this stuff.
I tell people the 3 things that can kill a race or a workout are not enough rest, poor calorie intake, or poor hydration. I mean, if you've done the training, you've done the work, and you've gotten to an event and you underperform, it's usually because you're too tired, not enough calories, or poor hydration. I mean, there's really physiologically not that many other explanations aside from the weather was extremely hot and humid and you didn't expect it.
Well, you knocked me out of the tournament at poor training because I never really get much past there. But then it's a combination of the rest of those after that.
You'd be surprised on what you can accomplish as long as you're well hydrated and taking in enough calories. People, you can keep going a lot farther than you think you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as you just stay on top of it.
Absolutely. All right, we've hit the hour.
The staying on top of it thing is key.
Tell us where to find you, how to look you up if Vaughn wants to get tested and shot in the eyeball.
We're going to make that happen. I can see us doing that at the gym or something like that.
Yeah, if you want to hit the easy button.
We need to do it before Tunnel Hill.
Well, yeah, it's ASAP.
Yeah, we can definitely we can come and set up, and we can pre-book spots and just give people a time to come in and test a load of people and give them all the easy button.
That'll be fun. We can schedule mani-pedis and I could just make it an event.
So how do they find you?
Yeah, so we are at buildpeakcompete.com, and you can go on there and check out all the services we offer, and there is a button to schedule a sweat sodium test. We call it precision hydration testing, but you can go on there and schedule a time to come in and get tested and get your hydration in check.
That sounds great. Well, Dale, we appreciate you very much coming on the show and taking the time to do this. I look forward to keeping in touch with you and hopefully, working together and doing some good things in the future. LHRL number 65 is in the books.
Yep.